Hello and welcome to the NextPowerUp review summary of Sword Coast Legends. This is a game developed in Unity 5 by developers Nspace, and it's being published by the guys who made Warframe, Digital Extremes. Obviously we did the impressions video later on last week, I believe, and now this will be the video that will accompany the review. Obviously, if you want to read the full review, unless you've already been linked back here from the review, you can see the full review and the performance analysis in the link below the video. And of course, you can visit our main site and our sister site NextPowerUp for hardware and other news like that. So we'll jump straight in, and I just want to basically highlight one of the first more performance related problems with the game, and that's the loading screen times. Occasionally the loading screens are quite quick, and they're generally over within about 10 seconds, or they can take an extremely long time, and you can get the subtle impression that the game might have crashed, because you'll get like the little circular wheel of death that Windows usually brings up when something's crashed, except then eventually it does load. So loading times could perhaps be made a little bit more sensible overall. That was relatively okay, but there are instances where it's a bit of a problem. But overall, performance-wise, it's pretty decent. I have to say that there wasn't really many problems in terms of performance. Obviously, on 4K, it wasn't the best it could possibly be, but this is one of those games that doesn't really require massive amounts of performance in order to feel playable. It's very much like Satellite Rain was a couple of weeks ago, when we were getting not so great FPS, but the game still felt playable at lower FPS on average. But overall, it was relatively decent. CPU usage, it actually was capable of using 4 threads entirely, which was quite nice to see. So overall, the game's performance was better than expected. As for the game, the tutorial kind of isn't. It's not really much of a tutorial. It's more of a. It's more of just the start of the game where your caravan initially gets attacked, and you'll find yourself basically running through the tutorial style stuff for about an hour to start with, and you very fortunately get to meet Bellamy, the gnome. I think he's a gnome or a dwarf, something like that, and he's probably the most interesting, funny character in the whole game, and I challenge anyone not to love Bellamy. Overall, the game is above average. I would certainly say it's above average. It is good. I would say it's good. It's not a award-winning game by any standards. Obviously, the game could be closest to something like a cross between Neverwinter Nights and Divinity Original Sin. It's got that Neverwinter Nights hybrid style combat, except without the dice rolls in the bottom of the text log. So it's definitely a D&D feeling game, but it sort of hides all that intense information sort of away from the player. So it's catering slightly more towards a more casual style of RPG for people who aren't necessarily looking for something like Pillars of Eternity. The AI is something that's been spoken about on the discussion pages for some time since it was in review, and I can understand why people are complaining about it. The pathfinding is okay, but you'll very often find that the AI gets stuck and just sort of doesn't try to fix itself and just faces in one direction and carries on trying to do what it is doing. So I'm a bit, I don't know, the AI could use some work. It's not game breaking at this point. It's very easy to sort out. Occasionally I've been in some combat where the AI's taken an odd move, but I've been able to sort of deal with it. But in the hard mode, that's the kind of thing that can't happen. Otherwise, it could cost you a few minutes of reloading and having to redo a section of the game. So the pathfinding is not fantastic, but it's okay for now. It's just something that needs to be brushed up on, I think. The interesting thing about this game is how they've dealt with just the core character. In that when you create your character in the start of the game, you'll very often find that everything persists everywhere. We're just going to go ahead and skip this dumb conversation because it goes on for a while. You'll notice that this game is very much old school RPG, Infinity Engine style RPG, by the amount of text you have to read. It's just one of those things. I mean, people who want to play old school RPGs generally expect this amount of text. Right, we'll travel to Neverwinter Wood and do that quest. So yeah, everything persists. You can't play the game until you created your first character, and you can create multiple characters. And once you created that character, everything will persist from then on. And your character will not only persist through your single player campaign, but it will also persist through your custom modules, other people's custom modules, multiplayer games, other people's multiplayer custom modules. And it's excellent because it gives you this kind of it makes you invest in your character and just generally feel a little bit more important. It makes your character feel a little bit more worthwhile as opposed to just something that you end up having to redo a few times over and over and over again. So I genuinely like the way that they've handled that. Yeah, we'll help this guy. So I'm a big fan of this, that you basically, anything you get awarded in a quest, anything you get from a multiplayer game, the whole lot, you will find that it's locked. You will find that everything persists everywhere. Obviously, some people think, oh, what if someone hacks themselves in some decent items or whatever. But that isn't really a problem because you can level cap your multiplayer games if you don't want certain overpowered people coming and ruining your games. This may require some concentration. But even if they do, you can just kick them out anyway, and basically the only thing they're really doing if they do choose to do something dubious with items or character levels, which I have seen someone do power leveling just because they obviously enjoy wasting their time, is you can just they're wasting their own time pretty much. You can it just doesn't matter, to be honest. The fact that everything persists is nice for 99% of players, and those who want to muck around and do stupid stuff, well, they're welcome to. It doesn't really affect you, and if you're going to do it, then you're probably just going to feel a bit bored after a very short amount of time. Another thing that that I quite like is the fact that inventory is shared between all your characters. There's an awful lot of games where you literally have to manage all separate characters' inventory. They even have their own gold in each other's inventory, and it's just generally extremely annoying. And I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I love Divinity Original Sin, but having to deal with 4 characters' inventory and then switch gold between them in order to buy things, and just all of that nonsense, and it really started to annoy me very quickly. But this avoids that by basically dealing with it and just saying, you know what, if you don't like this, well, that's fair enough. But everything's shared. The inventory is it's sortable, but it's not ideal at the moment, and that is one of the downsides of having a shared inventory. But it just makes everything feel so much easier. You can pick everything up with one person, and you can spend gold with anyone, and it doesn't matter. So overall, I prefer it this way. I think it's quite excellent. And I'm sure there are a lot of hardcore RPG players that probably will hate it and think, oh, this is atrocious. I hate the fact that there's a shared inventory, and I liked artificially spending more time in the game because I had to consistently keep fiddling about with everything and with all my characters. And I know I'm being a little bit negative here, but it's just never remotely interested me in the slightest having a separate inventory for all my characters. It just doesn't feel necessary, and it takes time away from the actual game if you're playing Inventory Manager 2015. The other thing that I found very impressive about this game is that you don't spend all of your time getting gear from drops, from killing monsters and stuff like that. You'll actually find yourself probably getting about half your gear from traders, half your gear from drops. A lot of my characters are fitted with stuff I've bought from the traders, and also quite a lot of stuff that I've found. So you're not relying upon RNG in order to get all of your gear like a lot of sort of hack and slash RPGs and stuff like that. And of course you have the blacksmith, and the blacksmith is quite a cool addition to the game, I think. And it's not just a generic blacksmith that sells you metal armor and weapons and battle axes and stuff like that. It's that you can unlock certain weapons basically by collecting a load of random items around the game world. There'll be random drops from bosses, or they'll be hidden in chests or something like that. And what that means is you collect all these little gubbins. In fact, I think I might have a couple to show you. Where is it? Oh yeah, so I've got like this Clan Solarel dagger handle. I've got a snapped bow half and this dagger crossguard. And basically what all these things are, they're like, if you ever played Starpoint Gemini 2, they're like pieces of blueprints. And what you do is you go to the blacksmith with various pieces of everything. And he basically turns around and says to you, oh yeah, you know, you can craft such and such a dagger for this. If you bring me the rest of the parts, then I'll... oh dear, this is not looking great. Then I'll make this weapon for you and charge you so much gold. And that's pretty cool, to be honest. I mean, these range quite wildly from items that maybe cost a few... yeah, you can get items that cost about 100 gold, but then you can also get items that will probably cost you in excess of 30,000, 50,000 gold or whatever because of their rarity. And it's genuinely quite cool, I've got to say. A couple of my characters have got gold items that have been made from the blacksmith, and it's just excellent because it's not one of those games where you're constantly waiting for items in the blind hopes that you'll get them from a boss or from just a random character. And so it opens up the game to make NPCs feel a hell of a lot more important, and I think that's a lot of things a lot of RPGs have failed at, is making NPCs essentially worthless. And games like Diablo made gold completely worthless until they did the auction house nonsense, which didn't really work that well for them. So it's very, very good the way that they've dealt with items. Yes, you do get some from drops, you do get some from like larger bosses, you can get some from custom modules if you were so inclined, but you can also deal with blacksmith stuff, and you can buy very, very good gear, even purple items, from NPCs, and I think that's excellent. And another thing I forgot to mention about the inventory is that weight isn't really a problem, which is just one of those things. Some people will like it, some people won't, but you know, that's personal opinion, I think. Another thing is the level up system, which I can show you very quickly. Every character will have different sets of talents, so each one will probably have about 5, maybe 6 talent trees. Everyone has this skills and proficiencies talent tree. All of them will have that proficiency nonsense, which is basically just your armor proficiencies, your weapon proficiencies, maybe some lockpicking and some searching or stuff like that. All of them have that, so you can spec into that as you please. Obviously, like my main character has armor and shield proficiencies, and then every single class has their very own 5 or 6 sets of talents. Like this, the wizard or whatever will have tons of stuff from support spells to attack spells, and as you can see, I have spec'd across all of them. Now, it gives a hell of a lot of a range in terms of leveling. A lot of games like Neverwinter Nights and Divinity Original Sin play the leveling game very, very differently. In Neverwinter Nights, you'd sort of have to either look online or just do blind guesses for what what skills you're going to get. Whereas this game, it's very clear. You can get certain passives or certain spells and stuff. Maybe 5, maybe 6 overall in the entire talent tree. Some of them will be passive, some will be active stuff, support stuff. You can spec across them all, and then all that you do is once you've unlocked something, you can then unlock slightly better versions of it. And as you can see from my wizard, even though each specific little talent tree system only has a couple of different things, my spell bar is full. Even my healer's bar is actually reasonably good, and my tank's bar is actually pretty well stocked as well, just because I've spec'd into some of these things over here. A bit of damage, a bit of defense, and it's a very good way of doing the leveling system. This bit is a bit whoo, but this is largely done when you create a character, and I've actually found that I don't tend to touch proficiencies on any of my characters except for my my rogue, because he needs searching and lockpicking proficiencies. Except, as you can see, I've neglected it a little bit too much. So I'm a big fan of the leveling system. I think it's streamlined enough to make the game easier for players who are new to old school RPGs, but at the same time offers that variation of skills for those that like to fill 2 control and shift bars of skills, if they so wish. And also, there's despite the fact that the game is very streamlined, there's still the ability to min-max everything to your heart's content. So if you are a hardcore sort of old school RPG player, and all you want to play is Pillars of Eternity and stuff like that, or Baldur's Gate, you can min-max your character. You can get certain races for your talents. You can obviously put your stats into things very specifically how you like them, and then equip your gear. The entry skill level for this game is quite low. It's quite easy to jump into, but also at the same time, there's quite a high skill ceiling. Oh dear. Yeah, we'll kill him. It's fine. We'll send you over there. So there's quite a high skill ceiling if you so wish it, especially if you want to play the... Oh god, we don't want to do that. I feel like we've perhaps bitten off a bit more than we can chew. Run away! Oh dear. So it's... hard modes are particularly hard, I have to say. You'll very often find yourself in a spot of bother. I'm not going to be able to do this. This is impossible. This is not going to happen. The skill ceiling is quite high for the medium, well, not medium, I'd say the harder difficulty level. Oh, this is not going well. So basically, if you are looking for a genuine challenge and looking for some absolutely pure strategy in your RPG title, the skill ceiling is there for those that want it. Obviously, there's a lot of things that streamline, like the inventory and the skills and everything like that. But if you so wish to make the game as challenging as that, it is there available to you. Although I generally suggest that you attempt to level your character up a little bit first before you do anything like that. As it gets quite complicated. Another thing is that it still follows the D&D stereotypical cheesiness. Like, the storyline is very predictable. I was playing with another... Oh boy. Who do I choose? Yeah. So oh dear. As yeah, this is typically, it's very very cheesy D&D. So for those who are expecting something Neverwinter Nights like, it is definitely there. I keep using Neverwinter Nights as a likeliness, but it's like all of those other Icewind Dale, Baldur's Gate games where the storyline is extremely it's quite D&D like. It's pretty. What I'm trying to say is it's relatively basic, quite simplistic, and yeah, you don't really. There's not. You shouldn't really expect too much from it. I mean, there are a few twists and things like that, and it's interesting. It's enough for you to follow. Basically, it's not too complex, but it is very Dungeons and Dragons like, basically. So I wouldn't expect anything magical from it. Right, there was nothing in here. But aside from the fact that the storyline is relatively simplistic, predictable, and rather stereotypical, the humour is actually quite good. It's very similar to Divinity Original Sin's humour, in that sort of very dry, almost Fawlty Towers style, Monty Python, very dry British humour, which is excellent. I'm a fan. I quite like it, but of course it's not going to ring that well with certain other people that may not find it quite as entertaining as I did. But it was it's good enough. I'm definitely a fan of the humour, particularly of Bellamy, the gnome at the start of the game, who I don't want to spoil. Who, yeah, I think he made the game at the beginning for me and made me want to play it a little bit more because it's quite good. Obviously, combat is the RPG type. It's the hybrid type. Obviously, as I said earlier, without the dice rolls shown. And that's probably where my other problem with the game is the combat doesn't really have any punch. When you play games like Divinity Original Sin, the combat, you see things explode and everything has force behind it. Whereas this, this is a bit more, well, it just doesn't feel right. Like if I hit my shield bash button, it doesn't feel like I've really done a whole lot of anything. It just feels like people are fighting each other with pillows, and that's probably one of my main disappointments with the game, is that the combat is very light and fluffy, and it just doesn't feel as good as it should be. In fairness, I think it could be better. I think it needs significant improvement to the general game, and it annoyed me a little bit because for such a reasonably good game, the combat lets the game down a lot in terms of punch. The combat is relatively strategic for those who do want it, but the punch is lacking in quite a number of areas, and it just feels like they could have done more to make it feel a little bit better, I think. So you know, it's a small thing, but I think the combat really does need to improve somewhat in terms of the punchiness, because even when you're using big epic spells on this guy, it just doesn't feel like much. It looks like just little fluffy lasers are being fired across the screen, and it doesn't feel as big as it should. I remember when I was playing Icewind Dale, my mage would cast a massive fireball circular thing, and it felt, even though it was quite an old simplistic game, it felt punchy because you were literally accidentally killing your own people, and it felt good that way. Obviously the AI is a bit peculiar at times, but overall I think the game it's a reasonably good game. Overall, I'm impressed. Obviously, I think it could be an excellent game, but there are a few things that let it down, like the overall AI is a bit of a pain in the ass, and the inventory thing, like dragging this doesn't work. Look, I'm trying to drag this. What you have to do is hold over it and then drag. It's little things like that, and the fact that the AI is occasionally a little bit dodgy at times, and it just feels like there could be a little bit more polish in the game overall. But other than these small niggles and the combat lacks a bit of punch, but everything else about the game just genuinely feels like it has surprised me. I came into this thinking this is going to be another game like Kin, where you look at it and you think, oh my god, that's amazing, and they've teased it for a while, and then you finally get to it and you think, oh, well, that was okay, I guess, but just okay. Whereas this game, it feels like they've made a lot of decisions, and they've made all of them very, very sensibly. And the only things I dislike about the game are perhaps things that just need to be given as feedback to the devs, and just say, hey, look, this could be improved, take a look at it. But in most instances, they've done an extremely good job of the game overall, and I think even the multiplayer would make this game like even better. If you have 3 friends to play with, this game just feels a whole lot better. I played multiplayer with one of the other reviewers online, and we had a really good time because we were chatting an awful lot, and we weren't actually playing much of the game just because we were talking, but it was still fun, and we were commenting about things that we felt about the game and certain parts of the dialogue, and we were making decisions about dialogue. So I think like this is a good game, and the fact that you can play with 4 people, if you can find 4 people, makes it would make it a hell of a lot of a better game. So if you do have 3 people to play with who are perfectly happy to jump into an RPG style game like this, I think you would have a really genuinely good time. And I think I would struggle to, I think at this point in time, if I were recommending this game to someone, I'd ask them if they have ever played an RPG before, an old school RPG, or if they've always wished they've wanted to play an RPG but don't have the time, or don't really want to put in the effort to play it, like min-max everything totally and completely. So if they are interested or have played it before, I would definitely recommend this game to other people who have been on the fence. If you're a hardcore RPG player that wants nothing less than Pillars of Eternity or old school Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, or Icewind Dale, and that's it, then I think you could probably cope with this game. But I think if you're looking for an awful lot of in-depth character customization, in terms of like just everything, I mean, Neverwinter Nights was quite a drain on time in the initial phases. You would literally spend about an hour making a character in Neverwinter Nights if you were properly min-maxing them. I did it once, but then just sort of thought, meh, it's a bit of a waste of time, and then I never went back and did it again. Every time I ever went back and played Neverwinter Nights, I just quickly made a character. Whereas in this game, you can very quickly just get into things, and I think that's a big advantage for the game. Oh, this is not going well. So yeah, overall I think pretty well made game, certainly above average, but it's probably not going to win massive awards for excellence the way that Pillars of Eternity did. Pillars of Eternity definitely made homage to old school RPGs. But I think if you're thinking about playing an RPG for the first time, this is definitely your ticket. It's very light-hearted, very easy to follow, and I think it introduces people to all of the things that are good and true to RPGs, and why they're such an entertaining genre and why they're so popular. So I think it's quite simplified, very streamlined. It's still open. And the skill curve, I think, is absolutely perfect as well. So overall, it's an excellent game, just with a few bits and bobs here and there that will entirely be personal preference, or just need a little bit of improvement overall. But I think for new and old players, there's definitely something here for people who are willing to take a look at it. And overall, I think I'd probably definitely recommend it. And that's pretty much it for us. I've quite enjoyed my time with Sword Coast Legends. I kind of wish I had some friends that played it, because I feel like I would probably enjoy the game so much more with friends. Just playing one evening with someone online who is another reviewer from Poland, it opens up the game a hell of a lot more. So while you can play everything as single player and you can play everything as multiplayer, I think if you do manage to find a friend to play it with, you'll find yourself having as good as an experience as Divinity Original Sin. So that's it for us. Obviously, check out the review and the performance analysis down below in the description, and of course, check out our sister channel NextPowerUp if you're looking for NextPowerUp news. And they also have the forums over for if anyone needs any hardware assistance whatsoever. And of course, I'm on there too, so you can pop in and say hi. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next Saturday for the next week in gaming. Thanks for watching.